What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 college football schedule preview and projected record series. It is time to do the SMU Mustangs first schedule preview and projected record video in history here on this channel, as SMU, of course, is now going to be a Power 4 team and also a member of the ACC. They're heading to the ACC in 2024, and of course, we didn't have any projections and prediction for this team last year, so what we're going to be pretty much doing in this schedule preview and projected record for SMU is that we're going to take a look at what they did from last year and then, of course, look at the schedule for 2024. So let's get right into it. This is also our official last team schedule preview and projected record here in this series. So next week we're going to have the standings for all of our projections for each and every single team that we did in the Power 4 conferences. So again, this is our last team, but this is also our first time that we're doing a schedule preview and a projected record here for the SMU Mustangs. So let's get right into it here. Let's take a look at what they did in 2023. You look at their record, they went 11-3 overall last year in the 2023 season. And SMU, of course, did go undefeated in the American Athletic Conference. They also won the American Championship. That's how they got the 11th win in the season. They were 10-2 in the regular season, but 11-2 after that, conference championship win. And then, of course, they lost their bowl game last year to Boston College. So that's how they ended up, going just 11-3 in 2023. So coming off a pretty good season last year, but you look at the schedule coming up here for 2024 as we now look ahead to the upcoming season. And before we go game by game, let's take a look at who they will play in the non-conference for this upcoming season. So you look at their non-conference schedule for SMU. They will play Nevada on the road, HCU, an FCS school, of course, and then they play BYU and TCU, both out of the Big 12. Of course, TCU will be a rematch from last year in the non-conference. That'll be a revenge game there for the Mustangs, but they'll play BYU here as well out of the Big 12. So you look at this non-conference schedule, it's not too tough. It's not horrible either. Yes, you got BYU and TCU here both on the schedule out of the Big 12, but those are two games that are definitely very winnable here for the Mustangs. You get both of those games at home at least, so that's the good news there in this non-conference schedule. So that's your non-conference schedule here for SMU for 2024. Let's go back to the schedule now and go game by game and preview their first schedule here as a Power 4 team. They will start things off, of course, with Nevada here on August 24th. That game, of course, will be in week 0, and that game is on the road. Then they'll play HCU here, an FCS team, on August 31st, and then after that they'll play BYU here on September the 6th. Again, that game's going to be on a Friday this year, and then they get a bye week after that BYU game before playing TCU here at home on September 21st. So they get a bye week before playing TCU. This is a revenge game here, of course, for the Mustangs from last year, and then they open up conference play here on September 28th. They'll play their first official ACC game against Florida State, again on September 28th. That'll be a home game there as well. And then they go into the month of October. They play Louisville here on the road on October the 5th. Then they get their second bye week here after that Louisville game before playing Stanford here on the road on October 19th. And then they play on the road here at Duke as well on October 26th. So they got 3 straight road games there from that stretch there in the month of October, from October the 5th all the way to October 26th. So they don't have a home game in the month of October. And then going into the month of November, they do play Pittsburgh here at home on November 2nd. Then they get another bye week here. They actually get 3 bye weeks because they do play a week 0 game. And then they'll come out of the bye week to play Boston College here at home on November 16th, and then on the road here at Virginia on November 23rd. And then they'll end things out here with California on November 30th. So that is the schedule for SMU in their first year of the ACC and also for the upcoming 2024 season. It is a tough schedule for SMU. You got BYU and TCU, like I mentioned, in the non-conference. You got Florida State and Louisville, 2 teams, of course, that played for the conference championship last year, but the good news about this schedule is they don't have to play Clemson, they don't have to play Miami, they don't have to play North Carolina, and they also don't have to play NC State, so you don't have to play those 4 other teams here in the ACC. Yeah, they don't have a really tough schedule at all, especially for their first year in the conference. Again, the toughest games in the ACC are definitely like Florida State and Louisville, and you play those 2 games right away there in, opening, week there, the conference play against Florida State, and then, of course, Louisville here on the road. That'll be their 2 toughest games here, in my opinion, on this schedule, and then the rest of the games you can definitely win and possibly make it to a bowl game. And I know they got BYU and TCU in the non-conference, but again, both of those games are at home, and they're definitely very winnable here for SMU here as well. So let's now get to the projection here for SMU for 2024. This has been the scale that we've been using here throughout these projections. If it's a 1% game in the red, that percentage is going to count as an automatic loss, and then your 20% games here in the orange are going to be games where SMU will be a double-digit underdog, and then your 40% games here in the yellow are going to be games where SMU will be a clear underdog game by about a touchdown. 50-50 games will, of course, stay in the white. Games I think can really go either way. Then your 60% games here in the purple are going to be games where SMU will be favored by about a touchdown, and then your 80% games here in the blue are going to be games where SMU will be favored by double digits, and then your 99% games here in the green are pretty much your easy wins and also automatic wins here in that percentage. So we'll start with the easy wins here for SMU on their schedule. I think you got one easy win, and that's their FCS opponent here in week number 1 of the season against HCU. I have never heard of this school, and SMU should definitely roll in that game. So I think they'll be a big favorite in that game by at least over 95%, and they also should be favored by more than 3 touchdowns, where they should be able to score like 20 plus or 30 plus points, or maybe even 40 plus in that game there in week number 1. So that's the easy win there for SMU. And then I got one game on here in the blue where I think the Mustangs are going to be favored by double digits, and that's going to be the game here on the road at Nevada on August 24th. Again, that game is in week number 0, and just because it's on the road, that's the reason why it ended up being in the blue instead of the green. If this game was at home for SMU, it'd definitely be in the green, then it would be in the blue. But either way, I think SMU is definitely clearly the better team here, and I think they'll definitely be favorites here by double digits, again by 10 to 14 points, somewhere in that range, by about a couple touchdowns here as well. So I think that's also a win there for SMU. It's not a guaranteed win. Both of these games in the green and blue are not guaranteed wins. They're not guaranteed wins like I mentioned, but you never know what could happen. But either way, they're counted as automatic wins and easy wins here in this projection. So I think SMU will be favorites in both of those games. And I don't have any games on here in the purple for SMU. So let's go to the games now where SMU I think will be underdogs in. I don't have any red games on here, and I also don't have any orange games on here for SMU, but I do have a couple games on here in the yellow where I think SMU will be clear underdogs in by about a touchdown, and those two games are going to be Florida State and Louisville here on the road. Florida State, obviously, that's their opener in the ACC, of course. That'll be a very tough game, but the good news is that the Mustangs do get that one at home. That's definitely one of those upset alert type games that I think SMU probably could pull off an upset somehow, and maybe they are 4-0 going into this game. You never know what can happen here once we get into the early part of the season. But again, that's a home game. That's the reason why this one turned out to be in the yellow here for me. But I think either way, SMU will still be a 8 point underdog in this one against the Seminoles. Florida State definitely has more talent on the roster. And then Louisville here on the road. Just because it's on the road, that's the reason why this game is in the yellow as well. And plus, both of these teams did play for the conference championship last year. So those will be very tough games there in back-to-back weeks, but they're definitely very winnable games here for SMU. And like I said, I think they'll be clear underdogs in both of those games by 6, 7, 8 points, somewhere in that range. And then the rest of the games are pretty much all 50-50 games. So I got 8 total 50-50 games on here for SMU for their first year in the conference. BYU, TCU, both out of the non-conference. Those are pretty even matchups. The good news is, like I mentioned, they do get both of those games at home. And then Stanford and Duke here, both on the road. Those are pretty even matchups there. Pittsburgh and Boston College are pretty even matchups at home. Boston College, definitely a revenge game there right there on November the 16th. Obviously, they lost to them in their bowl game last year. And then, of course, Virginia and Cal are also pretty even matchups here as well. So, again, those are all my 50-50 games here for SMU heading into their first year in the ACC. Let's now get a projected record here for SMU for 2024. This is not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on how tough the schedule is. So we count that one green game as an automatic win, and then you count that one blue game as a win as well. And then you average out those 2 yellow games here at 40%. And then you average out all 8 of these 50-50 games here at 50%. And the overall projected record for SMU comes out to be 6-6 here for 2024. So that is what the projected record looks like for the Mustangs. Again, heading into their first year in the ACC and also heading into their first year as a Power 4 team. And it wouldn't really shock me if SMU did go to a bowl game in their first year in the conference. Yes, it is going to be be a tough first year for them, but I think they'll be definitely pretty good enough to compete with some of these teams here in the ACC. Because like I said, you don't have to play Clemson, you don't have to play Miami, you also don't have to play NC State and North Carolina here on this schedule. Again, the only teams that you're worried about if you're SMU are definitely Florida State and Louisville. Those two games are going to be tough, but they're definitely very winnable. That's the reason why both of those games ended up being in the yellow. And like I said, BYU and TCU, those are going to be pretty tough matchups there in the non-conference, but those two games are at home here for SMU. And again, those are very winnable games. So again, Florida State and Louisville are the toughest games, but you look at the rest of the schedule the rest of the way, there's a really good chance that SMU does have a pretty good season. But the projection as of right now is 6-6 here for 2024. So that is my first official projected record here for SMU for the 2024 season. Give your thoughts on this SMU team down in the comments below, and that also completes our schedule preview and projected record series. Thank you guys for watching this series. Next Monday, we are going to be having the projected standings for all the Power 4 teams and Power 4 conferences, and we're going to break those standings down based on the projections that we have done. So that will be coming out next Monday. So thanks for watching this video as well, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.